Okay, are you guys able to see my screen on the right? Or sorry, on the right. Just my other screen that I have. So yeah, so here I have Unity Hub. And here I have my projects, learn, community installs. And in installs, you should have a Unity version installed. Anything higher than 2019 is fine. If you have anything lower, that's also fine. But it has to be greater than Unity 5. Unity 5 uses old physics. The new versions for every year, they have the different changes. So in this, anything higher than Unity 5 should be fine. So yeah, so if you guys are installing it, that's fine. I am recording this video, so anything you guys miss, don't just relax. You guys can go over the video once we're done and kind of follow from there. If you guys have any questions, just post any questions on the comments. So just type a question. I have the comments thing opened. So just type your question in there, and I should be able to answer. I will have you guys muted. Some of you guys have background noise, and I can hear that. So I'm gonna, if you guys see me just muting you guys, that means there's some sort of background noise that's, uh, it's, it's not. Well, yeah, it's annoying me. That's why I will mute you. But any questions, just make sure to ask in the chat, and I'll quickly stop and see, try to answer that question. Okay, so let's get started. Today, what we're gonna do. So if you guys don't know, my name is Fernando. So I'll be helping you guys out with Unity today. So if you guys don't know, this is called Unity, and Unity is a game engine. And basically, game engines are like pre-done files that have libraries that help you make games easier. Instead of writing everything from scratch, you have everything ready. You have everything ready for you. So let's get started. So here we're just gonna go to projects, and then we're gonna click new. This we're gonna make a new project. Once that pops up, this little window pops up. So we'll be dealing with 2D graphics today. We'll be learning a little bit about the physics systems in 2D and make a very small project, very simple project, just to understand and see how physics work in the engine. So we're gonna click on 2D. So make sure this box is highlighted. And then here on the project name, we're just going to call it test physics testing or something like that. And just make sure you click create. And then from there, you'll get a Unity window. It's on, I have dual screen, so it's going to start the main screen's on the left. It's on my other screen. So it's going to start loading. So you're going to start seeing a little loading bar, just like this. So just let it load. It's creating the whole project from scratch. Can I see you? Can you share your screen and show me what's going on?
Can you see Adrian's screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we did is we did this add,
Okay.
click next and next,
Uh-huh.
but it goes through the long installation process, but it goes back to the empty box and you need to have it. Nothing appears.
Nothing appears. Okay. So that might mean that so it does that and then it just disappears.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that just it probably just crashes. Just close everything and then open up Unity Hub again. It should appear. If it's already out there, if it's already there, it should appear again. Yeah, just close everything. Restart Unity.
Okay.
Okay, so while we wait, I'm just gonna explain what you see here. So this is the Unity game engine. On the left-hand side, these are called panels. So if you guys see how I'm clicking each panel, each panel, each one controls something. In this case, on the left-hand side, this one's called the hierarchy. The hierarchy basically means everything that is in your current game that is active. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be active, but it's in your game and exists. Will be here. So you'll be seeing a lot of that. So I think by default, this little arrow is closed. So if you just click this arrow, it drops down and it gives you a main camera. So your main camera is your main object that is always in your scene. So basically, when your game starts, you should be able to see something. So that's what by default comes in Unity. Now in the middle we have our scene tab. Still doesn't pop up. Let's see. Try installing a different version. Try installing a previous version. Maybe that'll help. So click on installs and just install a later version. Maybe that should help. Maybe that can help.
Okay.
Okay. And then in the middle we have the scene view. So everything that is currently in your game that is visible will show up here in your scene. So right now, how to move in the screen. You hold, if you guys are using mouse, like a regular mouse that has a left, right, and then a middle wheel. If you click your middle wheel, the little hand pops up, and then you're able to pan around your game. If you use your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out, scroll up and scroll down with your mouse wheel, you're able to zoom in and zoom out of your game. And you could also hold your your right click button. If you hold it, you could also move around the scene. Usually this right click is reserved for 3D also, but since we're only using 2D, this one's also to pan. Okay, and then you click and hold. Click and hold, and then you highlight objects. Okay, so that's the basics of it. Yeah, and then once we get into 3D stuff, then of course the controls will start moving. We'll start changing. Like we'll have orbits, and 3D zooming, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then on the right-hand side, and then next tab here, next to scene, we have game. So game is currently what the camera is seeing. So if you guys take a look at the camera, this is what the camera is seeing. It's seeing nothing. So if you click on the camera, it just sees nothing. This is the empty blank space in Unity. So why is it showing blue? If you click here on the camera, on the right-hand side, you have all the properties of the camera. So when you click an object on the left-hand side, it shows up the properties. This is called the Inspector tab. And then here, it's showing the camera, and it's showing the background is blue. So if you don't want a blue background for your project, you want like a different color, you just click on it, and you can change the color. Like if you don't want nothing, you can just press black. And then when you press play, you're just going to see a black screen because there's nothing in the game. Okay? I'm just going to leave it back in blue. Okay, and then we have okay, and then on the right, also on the right-hand side, we have other properties of the camera. One big thing you guys have to, you guys will learn is these two properties. For the camera, there's two modes. There's called perspective and orthographic. Perspective is used mainly for 3D. It's to give you depth. Perspective is also how we see the world. So we have two eyes, so when we are seeing, we're able to figure out depth. Orthographic, everything that you have in if you have an object all the way in the back, it doesn't matter. What happens is the whole camera squishes everything into one layer, and then everything is the same size. Now everything, how everything shows, for example, if one thing is on top of the other, that's called layering, and we'll talk about that later when we have different objects moving around in the scene. And then we have size, so basically how big your canvas of the camera is going to be. Don't change the scale. If you change the scale, nothing's going to happen. So there's a lot of beginner game developers that change this, and then this is not going to change anything. Unless you have an object on the camera, it's not going to change anything. So just make sure to change here, size. So I'm going to keep it default to 5. Okay, and then that's it. Everything else, you won't get to it yet. These are more for 3D things when you have a render pipeline. Okay, so let's get started by down here. Sorry, the last thing is project. So the projects are the project panel tab is basically just showing you all the raw assets that you have. So for example, if you have 3D models, paints, textures, art, everything is going to be down here. So you can just, whatever you draw, you can just click and drag and drop it in here, and then Unity should be able to recognize that object. Okay, so let's get started by making something very simple. So to make a simple object or simple shape, Unity already provided simple shapes for us. We don't have to draw it. So on the project here on the project tab, here on the gray space, anywhere in the gray space, you can click right click, and then you have all these options. Or you can click here. There's a small button called create, and you can select what you want to do. I like clicking here. It's easier because I can just drag my mouse down and just right click. So I'm going to go to create. I'm going to go to sprites. And then here we have all our objects, things that we can that Unity provided for us, shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a circle. I'm just going to call this one. Actually just going to leave it at circle. Okay, and then to put it on a scene, we're just going to click and drag it out here. Okay, and now we have our first object. Our first object is a circle. Okay, now this circle has two properties. One property that everything in Unity has, it's called a transform object. This is a component, sorry, this is a component. So one component that every object has, it's called a transform. The transform object has three mini properties. The first one is called position, where in the world it is according to, you see where the camera is? This is 0, 0, 0 on the X, Y, and Z axis. Sorry, I lied. This camera is -10 on the Z-axis because it's zoomed out looking at the project. And then here, this one, you see how I move around and my X and Y are changing, but my Z stands still because we're only working with X and Y. Hopefully everyone knows their X and Y axis. My left and right are X, my up and down is Y. Okay, so remember, left and right is X, up and down is Y. Going up is positive, going right is positive, going down and left is negative. Okay, so we have our object. Now, if we just plop our object there and just press play, this is what this is what it's going to show up. It's just a circle and then a blue space. There's nothing there, and that's it. So let's add some fun to this. Let's add the let's make this ball move. To make this object move, we can add physics to this. So here, if we click on Add Component, there's a button here on every object that you have. So if you click on the camera, you can click Add Component. If you click on the circle, you can also add component. So if you click on Add Component, here you can add different types of components. Here, Unity has a bunch of components. What we're going to be using is Physics 2D. And the collider, or the thing we're going to be using, is a circle collider, because of course this is a circle and we want a circle collider. Okay, and what the purpose of a circle collider, if you guys see, it's like a small green line around the circle. The whole purpose of this collider is to give it a physical boundary. So if something, still nothing appears, that's strange.
Yeah, it finished the installation, but it goes back to the empty box. It doesn't show anything.
It doesn't do anything. That is interesting. You have a Mac, right?
Yeah.
Try finding it on the Finder. Maybe it's in there.
Yeah, if you click locate, but it only has Unity Hub. I don't see anything else.
And you downloaded yeah, it should be the right one because Mac has a different downloading when you download from Unity. Try go back to the download page for Unity. There's another option. It says download Unity Hub. and then there's download Unity plus download. So choose your Unity and plus download. That should give you the normal one.
That one, just one option is $40. The other one is $150.
Oh yeah, on the tab, there's a tab on the top that
Oh,
says individual or business. Just click on individual, and then go down and type and look for personal, and just click get started. And don't click student. Student's different.
Okay, it's done.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so back to the circle thing. Yeah, so the collider basically gives it a physical boundary. So let's just say if I have something else, let's just say I have a box down here. If this thing goes, you know, it goes down like this, and then it touches the box, that box is now going to collide with this circle. Now this circle can rotate, it can rotate, roll around if the box is slanted. Activate real physics. But this actually won't move. If I press play, because there's no physics applied to this, so this is not going to move. So to make this move, we have to add physics. Unity already has inbuilt physics. So if you click on Add Component and add Rigid Body, 2D, because we're working with 2D, now it's going to have physics. So now if I press
What's
play,
it called?
I'm sorry?
What's the component you added?
Rigid Body 2D.
Oh, rigid.
Yeah. Oh, can you guys see my screen or no? I'm sorry. I gotta get used to this thing. Yeah, let me know if I can't. You guys can't see my screen. Sometimes I forget to reactivate my screen. Sorry. Yeah. So, like I said, so here's my circle, and then I added 2 components. Right. We have a circle collider, so that gives a green kind of outline for the circle, and then I have my rigid body, so rigid body 2D, and this has all the component, all the properties of physics. So now when I press play, now the circle is there, and it's going to slowly drop, and it's going to go down until negative infinity because there's no end to this. So if you guys take a look here on the y-axis, on the position, it says negative 600, negative 700. It's already going down, and it's gaining speed. Okay. Now let's add some blocks so our ball can you can see how this reacts with other objects. So if you go down here back to the gray space, you right click. Full screen mode. What do you mean? Oh, so yeah. So if you right click here and click on create, we will go to sprites and then go to square. Sorry, yeah, square. And let's call this one. I'm just gonna call them tax. And I click and drag them out. Now it's just a square. Okay, and what I'm going to do with this square is that I'm going to add a physical collider. So I'm going to add a collider. And here it's giving me all these options. Again, we're using 2D, so let's look for 2D. So we have all these options. So of course, this is a box. So I'm just going to click on Box Collider, and now we have a Box Collider. So now if I put it down here and press play, now my ball drops and my ball stops, right? Because now there's a physical barrier here on this box, and then the circle, when it collides, it's just like colliding against the floor, and you just stop because this thing is a rigid body. It's a rigid thing, and the thing doesn't move. Now, if you want this to move with this, if you add a rigid body, make sure you do rigid body 2D. So if you do this and you press play, now here, both of them are going to fall down, right? Because both of them are obeying gravity. So what you want to do with this square is you want to make it to 0. So you put gravity 0. You press play. And now when the ball hits it, it takes the box with it. So now they're both, since they're both colliding, one is transferring velocity to the other, and the other one is following. So here, on the gravity, you can change the gravity. If you want this to levitate instead, so let's just say you want it to go up, you can do -1. So instead of falling down, it's going to be going up. Okay. Again, this depends on what kind of game you guys are, what kind of game you're making. So here in this example, we're actually not going to work with a dynamic. So this is called dynamic. Okay. So instead, it's not going to be dynamic. It's going to be static. So just make sure you click here on the drop down. Body type, instead of dynamic, click on static. Okay. So it's going to act exactly how we had it the first time. It's not going to move. It's just going to stay there. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to make this, we want to rotate this to make this kind of like a diamond shape. To do this, the shortcuts for this on your keyboard are Q, W, E, R, T, and Y. Okay, so they're all the keys that are on the top. So it's Q, W, E, R, T, Y, the QWERTY. Those are all your tool shortcuts. If you don't want to use those shortcuts, you can go up here, the top left. There's all the buttons for the tools. So the first one is the hand tool. The hand tool is just to move around in the scene. Click here, the second one for move tool. So move tool depends on what you click. That's the thing it's going to move. So if I click on tax, you see how there's a red and green arrow? That means now this object is able to move. So if I click on the green arrow, I can only move on that axis, which is the Y. If I click on the red, I can only move on the X axis. If you see here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a small yellow square in the middle of the two lines. If you click on that, now you're able to move on those two axes. So I'm going to move on a plane. So here, I can move both on X and Y. And this is the most handy tool. If you click here, you're able to move your object anywhere. The next one is rotate. Here, we have the line. So we have a white line and a blue line. For this one, white line rotates depending on where you're seeing it, your perspective. Blue line is a one axis, green is the other axis, and red is the last axis. So here, if I move it on my blue axis, right, I'm able to rotate it like this. If I rotate on my red axis, I'm able to rotate like this. If I click on my green axis, I'm able to rotate like this. Okay, so depending on how you want your rotation. Yeah, I'm sorry. Then I don't know what's going on with your Mac. Maybe try restarting your whole computer. It's like the last thing I got.
Yeah, actually started and asked us to do the installation, but after it completes, it's still the same.
Did you restart the computer?
No, not yet. Yeah, that's the only thing we can try now.
Yeah, try that and then see if it works.
Yeah,
okay. And then the last one, you can't rewind the video. You have to. I don't think you can. But I haven't done that much anyways. You can quickly catch up. All I did is right here on the scene, on the asset, right click here, create, and go to sprites. And then here, just click on the correct ones. And then all I did is drag one out, the other. Here, I put two physics stuff. And then here, I also put two other physics stuff. Okay, and also for rotate, if you click on the gray space, you click and drag, you're able to rotate it on any, on all the axes. If you mess up, and let's just say you have it like this and you want to return back to it facing you or being a normal square, you can go up here to rotation. It says X, Y, Z, and you can change this back to 0, 0, 0, and you have your circle back to normal. If you want to rotate for a certain amount of degrees and be a perfect angle, if you rotate this, and let's just say you want this, which is what I want, like a diamond shape. Here, I know this is 45 degrees. If I check here, my Z-axis says 48. So I'm just going to change this to 45, and it's going to give me a perfect diamond. Perfect rotation, rotate. Okay. And then we have the other tools. We have the scale tool. So here you just click on the handle. You click and drag, and you can make your objects bigger or smaller. Again, you can with only one side and then the other, depending on what handle you want. If you mess up again, let's just say you want this. You had this and you want to go back. Here, look at scale and just change this to 1, 1, 1, and you have it back. If you want a certain size, for example, you want 1 by 2, you just click this, you just change this to 2, and then it changes it to 2. Change it back to 1. Yeah, it should be on 2D. Okay, so what I want to do is this object, I want to color this object because when I click here, well, I mean, not when I click here, when I put it here and this circle, when I press play, this circle and this thing, they share too much the color, and I'm going to get confused, like what's what. So to change the color is fairly simple. If you click on the object, this only works for 2D objects that have white on it. If you want different colors for a texture, that's a little more advanced. Then we have to change. We have to create a material. Okay. For this one, because it's very simple, it's the 2 just white colors. If you click on it, and on the right-hand side, you see a component called Sprite Renderer. You can click on color, and then you can change the color to, I want like a red ball, something like this. And then click on this one, and I want a green tack. So something like that. Okay, so now I have 2 different colors. Okay, so all I did is just click on color, and then the color changed according to what I clicked. Now I press play. Now my ball goes, and it goes down. Okay, now I want to put multiples of this tacks because I want my ball to be bouncing around these tacks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press Control-C, Control-V, Control Copy Paste, Control Copy Paste. Now there's a problem to this. If I do this, Control Copy, Control Paste with objects just like that, let's just say I want to change the color. I want to change to, let's just say blue, right? So notice how I changed one box to blue, but the others remain the same. If I want to change blue, I want all of them to change. So to do that, I'm going to create something called a prefab. So I'm going to delete my other copies. No valid license. That means you haven't activated yet. You have to create you have to log in and just say that this is just for educational. Yeah, just click on manage licenses and just get one. It's very simple. You just have to say I'm not making money off of this, and they'll give you a free license. If you say yes, then they'll charge you money. Just say no. This is for educational purposes. Yeah, so here what you do is you click on the tags, you click and drag it on the bottom here to your project tab, and now you see a green square with gray background, and it's called tags. Now this is my my prefab. Okay, so here it saved all the information about this object. So now whenever I want to make copies of it, you can just click and drag this object out, or you can just Control Copy. Copy and paste this object. So you now notice on the left-hand side on the hierarchy, they're blue, blue text. That means that object is now a prefab. So now I can copy and paste wherever I want. And if I click on one of them and change the color from green, and let's just say I want it blue. Okay. So now this one changed, and all you have to do is go up here to overrides. It's right below default, and click apply all. When you apply all, it applies to everyone. If you don't want to go through all that, all you have to do is you can also click on the bottom where the prefab is. Click on the color, and you can just change it, and it quickly changes it to what color you want. All right, so there's 2 options: just changing one and then applying to everyone, or changing the actual prefab. Nothing happens. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any more solutions for that. Usually when you download Unity, a hub, it does everything automatic for you. No, it's not that. It's just when they download, it says that it disappears. Like it's downloading, installing, and then just disappears. That's interesting. You have to look up. Yeah, you have to look into that. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a solution for that. Mm. Yeah, well, I'll look into your problem a little bit later. I can't think of any solution right now for that. Yeah, if you wanna switch computers, yeah, you can switch to maybe a PC. Usually PCs are pretty good. Anyways, hello, Niels. Okay, so again, so we have all our objects. They're now prefabs. So now when I press play, all the objects should have the same properties. So now when I press play, they all have those properties. Now, if you want to change something during runtime, this is called runtime because it's running. If you click on scene, you're able to move stuff, and it'll dynamically change the project. But when you click play again, notice how the green square is going to snap back to its original position. Because when you press play, all the stuff that you change will not get saved. So whenever you're changing a scene, make sure the play button is not pressed. Okay, when you want to change, it's off, and then you move or change whatever you want. Once you have that, you press play, and then from there the thing starts working. Sorry, not the thing. The game starts playing. Okay. So let's make this a little more interesting. Let's move this here, so you can see a little more bouncing around the game. Okay, and then voila. Okay, so then this is a very basic collision. Now, if you want to do something a little more challenging, sorry, to detect collisions, the way to detect collisions here, there's there's two ways. The easiest way is to write a simple script. The other way is making what's it called? Event. Oh no, sorry, that works for animation only. No, sorry, scrap that. There's only one way of doing that. You click on. So we're gonna make a script, a simple script. What we want is whenever this ball hits this object's gonna turn, let's just say purple. Okay. To do that, on the right hand side, we're gonna click on Add Component. Okay. We have our component, and we're gonna add a script, and this script is just gonna be called select or change color. Okay, so we have change color. Okay, so what I did is you add component, and you click up here where the search bar is, and you type in the name of the script. So change color. So of course this script doesn't exist, so you just click on, it's going to be a new script. So you click on new script, and it should be already named for you. It changes color. To name your scripts, you cannot have space bars in your script. It tells you the rules here. So it says script name may only consist of A through Z, numbers or underscore. So having a space bar, you can't have a space bar with scripts. Okay. Usually the convention I like using is Camel Case. So Camel Case is basically saying that the first letter of the first word, or because these two words are bunched together, the first letter is lowercase, and the second letter, no, the first letter of the second word is uppercase. So like this. So change color, 2 words. First word is lowercase, second word is uppercase. Okay. So you just click on create an ad. So just wait for it to load, and then this thing pops up. Now the way to open the script, there's 2 ways of opening the script. Is if you click here where it says change color, the script is there. So you double click, and then you're able to launch the script. Or you can click on the project panel. Sorry. You click on the project panel to clear where it says change color. Just double click this, and you should open the script. Okay. Now, if you guys are using Visual Studio, Visual Studio makes this way easier for you. It auto completes stuff for you. So I highly recommend you using Visual Studio. If you have Mono Develop, that's fine. I think Mono Develop now does auto fill in for you. I think I don't remember, but Visual Studio does a good job about it. So what we want to do is we want to write a function that when this ball hits this object, is going to change its color to purple. Okay, so let's take a look at how the script looks like. So here, if you guys don't haven't done any type of C#, I'll quickly go over this and briefly explain what's going on in the script. So up here, these three lines, if you guys used Python before, these three lines are like imports. So this is saying using Unity Engine, using system.collections.generic, and so on and so forth. So this is just importing systems.collection. This is the basics of C#. So adding to a list, indexing, or sorting. So those are the what's in system.collections. System.collection.generic is just using fancy scripts. Sorry, not fancy scripts, fancy containers like linked lists and other things that are a little more complicated. And then finally, we have using Unity Engine, which is this is the actual, what Unity has, all the libraries Unity has. The next thing is this is a public class. So this has to be a public. Of course, this is a class. It's a data type. It's a data type that can hold multiple information. Then we have the name of the script. So this name and the name of your script should be the same. If you change this to something, this won't compile, because here this name of the script is called change color, and the name of the class is called something. So this won't compile. Okay. There's two ways of fixing this. One, change this to change color, or you can change the actual name of the script. So you can go to your folder, right-click, rename, and then change it to. Again, there's two ways of doing this. The easiest way is just changing the name of the class. And then finally, we have this dot and then mono behavior. So these dots means they're going to inherit. So basically, they're going to grab information off another class, and this class is called mono behavior. Mono behavior has many functions. The two main functions that we want to use are start and update. Okay, start gets called whenever the object becomes alive. So whenever it starts. Okay, not necessarily when the game starts. It starts only when the object is alive. Okay, so for example, let's say your boss is there, but your boss is deactivated, right? So whenever you cross something, you want to activate that script, you activate it, and then that object becomes alive, and then this function will run only one time when that object becomes alive. Okay. Then we have update function. Update function is basically like your loop function that this keeps going over and over when the object is alive. So after start is called, then update is called, and this is called over and over again. Now, there is some things with update that you shouldn't do in update. For example, if you're using a rigid body and you're updating velocities or things like that, usually you don't want to do that in update, because update gets called once per frame. The physics engines, usually it's a bad idea running it per frame, because your computer will be doing a bunch of calculations, the same calculations over and over and over again, and your computer is going to get pretty hot. So usually what you want to do is like every 6-7 frames, it's called a late update. You want to update your physics. But again, that's more complicated thing, okay? So here, again, we have our two functions. Our first function is called void start. And if you guys see curly braces, this is an open curly brace, closed curly brace. This means the code is going to start here and the code is going to end here. Okay, so that means all the code is going to be written in the middle of those two curly braces. Okay. So we want to write our function that detects collisions. To do that, there's a function called onCollisionEnter 2D. So basically, this function gets called every time there's an event that basically there's a collision event. So to write this, we're going to type in void onCollisionEnter 2D. If you have the autocomplete function, all you do is you press enter, and then autocompletes for you. Okay. You don't technically need the private. It's a good idea having the private, but you can just have it like this, and that's fine. Okay. Now inside your function, inside of void collision enter 2D, you're going to put parentheses if you did an autocomplete. And inside those parentheses, since you're expecting a collision, we have to expect a collision 2D. And we have to name this collision. This collision, we're going to call it collision, I guess. Okay. And then we have curly braces, and we have our function. Okay. So the name of the function, we are expecting a collision 2D named collision. Here we can call it whatever we want. We can call it banana, and that's fine with us as long as you know what banana is. This is going to stick to collision. Okay. Now inside the function, most of the cases, what you want to do is you want to check who collided with you, so you can do the appropriate action. Usually, if you have a generic, do something, it's a bad idea. But in this case, since our game is super simple, our ball is just going to touch an object and it's going to change color. We don't care who touches it. It's just if you touch, because the ball is the only thing that changes. Nothing else can change. Nothing else can touch those not moving square or kinematic squares. We don't care about checking. But if you do, the way to do that is saying if collisions have a property, a game object property. So collision dot game object. Sorry, collision dot game object, and then here you can check for tags. So you can compare a tag, or you can compare a name. So you can say name equals, ball. So here, if the collision's name object was ball, then I want to do something. Or I can say if, not name, I can put tag. If game object at tag equals ball, then do something. In this case, we're just going to put it a name. And say collision.gameObject.name equals ball. Then we want to do something. Again, this wasn't necessary, but I'm just showing you, well, what you're supposed to do if you had other objects moving around in the scene. Okay, and then here, what we want to do is we want to change the color. The color property. So if you go back to Unity, the color property is going to be under Sprite render. Okay, so Sprite, we need to access the Sprite renderer and change its color. Okay, so here, sorry, it's going to be on the square, not the circle. Okay, so this script belongs to this thing called tags. Okay, and this thing called tags has a Sprite renderer and has a property called color. Okay, so what we need to do is, since change color belongs to tags, we can just say, hey, go look for another component called Sprite render. So it goes, okay, there's a transform, a sprite. Okay, I found it. Sprite render is right here. Okay, so from its point of view, this belongs to tags. So if you go here, we can say get component, and we're looking for a component called Sprite render. Okay, and then open close parentheses to get that object. Once we have this component, what we want to do is we're going to access the color. So we're going to do dot color, and oops, sorry. And color has color. If you guys see, if you hover, the cool thing about Visual Studio is that if you hover over a property, that tells you what kind of property it is. In this case, this is called a color. It's a color property. So we can make a color property by saying color dot, and here we can. These are all predefined colors. So let's look for purple. If there's purple. There's no purple. There's magenta. There's two magenta. Okay. Magenta and then semicolon. Okay. So now that's it. Let's press save. Control S to save. Okay. And if we go back to Unity, now here you gotta let it load. Okay. So it's loaded. If you press play, now this is what's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. Why? Because here on our collision, we're expecting someone named ball. Here in our Unity, our ball is called what? Circle. It's called circle. So instead of circle, let's call it ball. And now if we press play, now you should be able to see it, but it's not going to work. Reason why? Because if we check the other, this box is okay. So if the ball hits this box, let's drag it here, it should turn purple, or magenta, sorry. So it does, but what happens to the other boxes? Why aren't they changing? Because this box has a script called change color. The other boxes don't. So to change that, you click on the box that has the script, you click here on overrides, and you click on apply all. Okay, so now all the boxes have changed color. So now if I move the circle back and press play, now everything the ball touches now turns magenta. Okay. So does anyone have any questions yet? You guys are awfully quiet. No, this is too easy for you guys.
Can I see the code again?
Of course. So it's this part of the code that you want.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? How do I add a sprite? To add a sprite, oh, do you mean like a custom sprite or the sprites we're using? Okay, well, if you're trying to add the sprites that we're using, all you do is you click you click on the gray area here on the project folder, you right click, and then click on create. Well, not click on create, hover over create, go to sprites, and then here you have sprites. We're using a square and a circle. Okay, so let's move on. Now let's add some cool effectors to this. So that means, let's just say our ball, falls down from, off screen, falls down here, and then it has some sort of like conveyor belt that is slowly pushing it to the right. So this is called an effector. And then to make that effector, that kind of like, what I just said it, the conveyor belt kind of effect that it's slowly moving to the right. We're going to create, well, I'm just going to use this tax thing. This I just want to use the square. Let me change it from tax to. So to rename an object, you just click on the object, and up here, or next to the checkbox, it's where the name is. So you can change that, or you can right click and then click on rename, whichever one is easier for you. So I'm going to call this one conveyor belt. Okay. I'm going to resize this. So I'm going to click on the resize tool on the red. I'm going to move a little bit to the right. Okay. And basically what I want is I want this ball to fall here, and this will slowly move to the right, and it's going to drop this stuff here. So actually I'm going to move it a little bit to the right so I can fall with these things here. Okay, and of course, let me change the color of this. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to make it an orange color. Yeah, something like that. Okay. And of course, we need to add a box collider and a rigid body, because nothing's going to happen. So let's add a rigid body 2D and a box collider 2D. Okay. Now, if I just press play, nothing is going to happen. Oh, actually, it is. Sorry, I lied. Because we have gravity enabled, so I'm going to click 0, and I'll make this kinematic. Now, if I press play, of course, nothing's going to happen. It just falls there. If we do have this slanted, of course, it's going to slide. So if I rotate this a bit, something like this, right? Of course, it's going to slide, down the thing. But that's not what we want. We want it to slowly move to the right, like a conveyor belt. So to do that, we are going to use an effector. So if we click on Add Component and then type in Effector, these are all the 2D effectors that Unity provides. The one we want is called a surface effector. So let's click on it, surface effector. Now, if you take a look at the surface effector, it requires some change to the object. In this case, the first thing that pops up, it says This effector will not function until there is one 2D collider with used by effector checked on the game object. So this means if you look at the box collider that we have, you just click on used by effector. So click on that, and then that exclamation mark goes away. So now we have these options. So we have force, speed, variation, force scale, speed, basically how fast you want, speed variation, how much you want this to be updated. So do you want the speed and speed variation kind of play along with each other. So if you play around with those numbers, you'll get different settings. And the force scale, how much do you want this to be pushed? And then options, you don't have to use these. If you want this thing to be slippery, you can just remove friction. But if you want friction, you just leave it on. I'll just leave it as default. So let's press play and see what happens. This thing falls, and you see the ball slowly moves to the right. Okay, kind of like a conveyor belt. Okay, so if you want to see it again, let's press play. The thing falls, and the thing slowly moves to the right. Right. Of course, if you want more force, let me change that. You click on this, and let's add like 5 for speed, and then force scale is 0.5. See how that looks like. Okay, so it throws it out farther away because the force is now stronger. Okay. So I should change it back to normal. 1 and 0.1. Okay, so is everyone there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Remember this this code goes on the boxes that you want to change color. Okay. All right. So again, we have this. Now let's add. The next thing we're gonna add is like a trapdoor. So basically, when the object gets near, the weight of it is gonna make the trapdoor activate, and then the ball's gonna fall because of that. So let's add. It's the next thing we're gonna use is called a hinge effector, collider. Sorry, no, it's an effector. Yeah, a hinge effector. Is it an effector? I think it's just called hinge. Yeah, hinge joint. Sorry, it's not even an effector. It's just a hinge joint. It's just a property. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab another tack down here, and this is gonna be my drop thing right here. Here. Okay. Now, if you are if you're a perfectionist where you want this to be like aligned and this has to be aligned here, to do that, you hold the V button. So just hold V, and then you're gonna get this circled, and everywhere you move your mouse, it's gonna snap. Sorry, it's gonna become a square, not a circle. So it's gonna snap. So if you click on the edge here and you move it to the nearest edge, it's gonna snap it there. So if you want it to be snapped here or here, wherever you want, it's just gonna snap, but it has to be a vertex. So now it's perfectly aligned. The edges are perfectly aligned. Okay. Now let's change color on this too. Let's make it a purple color. Yeah. Okay. And you want this to open with weight. So we're gonna click here on Add Component. And we're going to add a hinge joint. Make sure it's 2D. So we're going to click on hinge joint. Yeah, let's check this out. Let's just press play and see what this does. Press play. It goes. Oh, nothing happens because this does not have a box collider. So it has a rigid body. This hinge joint automatically makes a rigid body. but since it doesn't have an actual physical barrier, it's not going to do anything. So let's add a box collider 2D. Let's play, and let's check out what this does. So the hinge is right in the middle. So if you see when it gets near it, it should be rotating. Why isn't it rotating? Oh, I think because it's too close to this. But, let me actually move this thing a little bit to the right so we can see what's going on with this. Yeah, there you go. The other thing was stopping it. Okay, so it acts like a pin stuck to the middle, and then whenever there's an object forced to go, or it tips it, it starts to tip the one way. Hopefully that made sense. So you can just imagine you have like a nail in the middle, and then you twirl this around. Of course, this is gonna twirl, but this center is not going to move because it's stuck in that position. So that's what by default the hinge collider does. Or sorry, it's not a collider, just the hinge object does, component does. So to make a kind of like the trapdoor, we need to change where it's attached and where is it going to fall from, because this is pinned to the middle. That's not how the hinge works. The hinge has to be in the edge of the object. So here on the hinge property, here it says connected rigid body. We're going to click and drag our conveyor belt here. So now this conveyor belt is the one that's holding on to the trapdoor. So let me rename this to trapdoor. Okay, and of course we want to change this this hinge joint. So to change this hinge joint, I'm just going to click on click here where it says edit joint angular limits. So click on that. And then you're going to click on the blue circle, and you're just going to click and drag it to the edge here. Okay. So now that means here, this edge is now the hinge of this object. Okay. The next thing we want to do is this object. Yeah, we need to change the angle limits, because if you let's take a look how it's a bit without the angular limits. This is just going to automatically fall because gravity takes over, and then this is going to pull it. So we need to give it a limit. So the limit we're going to give it is 90. So one thing I also forgot is there's a check mark for use limits. So just click on use limits check mark. So now there's a limit of how much it can move. So now if you press play, this object shouldn't move. Now it still moves. Okay. Yeah. The last thing we also have to do is use a motor. Basically, we need to add force against gravity, because gravity is always pulling down. We need to add some upwards force. That upwards force is going to be used kind of like a motor, like a motor slowly pulling it up. So you click on use motor, and the motor speed we're going to choose is just do 100, and then the force we're just going to use 100 too. That should no. Maybe it's upper limit, lower limit. I have it backwards. No. Oh, I think I have to make it into. One moment, guys. Oh, my motor speed should be 100. One moment, guys. Sorry about that. It goes up. Okay, so it's going up to 90. I think because the ball's not that strong, let's change this down to 10. No, it's too soft. Let's do 50. It still goes up. Okay. Let's now it goes up. Yeah. I think this is 90. You just have to lower the motor force. Yeah, make the mass bigger for this project to 50. Not heavy. There you go. Okay, so it was the mass. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. I know I was forgetting something. Okay, so what you need to do, the trapdoor again, make sure it's on the edge. So once it's on the edge, we need to change the motor speed. So the motor speed has to be negative. Reason why it's negative because gravity is pulling it down, so you want to go the negative direction of that force. So we're gonna put negative 100. You can put whatever number you want. I think if you hover over this, yeah, it goes up to, is it 1 million? But I'm just gonna leave it at negative 100. Maximum motor force, basically how much force does it need to detect for the motor to stop, stop pushing it up. If you want it bigger, that means it's gonna hold more force. If you have it smaller, and heavier things are just gonna break it, and that's exactly what we want because we want some sort of trapdoor. Angle limit. So we do have a limit. We want this to only rotate downwards up to here, and then after that, we don't want to rotate anymore because it's a trapdoor. And yeah. So and then one more, and then the last thing is make sure your ball. If you click on your ball, you change the rigid body's property of the mass. This says here mass, and change it to something like 50, or I can change it to like 100, where the ball becomes really heavy. Okay. So now when I press play, my ball should fall. The conveyor belt still pushes it, and then the trapdoor goes down. You know. So let me move this square that's here because that's bothering the whole dropping down thing. I'm just gonna move it here actually, so it doesn't fall off the other one. So when I press play, this thing should fall like a trapdoor, and then bloop, and then there we go. Okay. Let me know if everyone is there. Oops, sorry, I didn't see your comments. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Good, we're good. That's good. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next thing. The next thing we're gonna do is we're still gonna work with your surface collider isn't working. Make sure you're working with 2D physics. It's surface effector. Surface effector 2D. And then make sure your box slider is used by effector. That has the check mark of used by effector. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, no, what happened? You want to share your screen so I can see what's wrong. Okay. So let me see what you have. So your circle collider, scroll up. No, this is your box collider. Okay. Yeah, you have to check that. Used by Effector. Wait, why do you have two box colliders? Remove one box collider. You don't need the other. You didn't need one box collider. Yeah, and then can you go back to your... yeah, can you go back to your circle? Yeah, your circle, why does it have a... Wait, scroll down. Scroll up. Wait, scroll down, it says information something. This collider will not function with an effector until there is at least one enabled 2D effector. Oh, yeah, you don't have an effector on this. Just uncheck effector. Yeah. Yeah. Now press play and it should work. There you go. Yeah, your boxes are not changing color either. You click on your boxes. Make sure they have this. Yeah, some of them already have the, or one of them already has the change color. It's there. Just click and drag it. Oh, there's something wrong with your script. Double click it. Oh yeah, the no space. There you go. There you go. Did you change your circle name to box? I mean, what do we call it? Ball? You're supposed to change it to ball, or else the boxes won't recognize the ball collision. Okay. All right, so now it's working. Good. All right, so let's go back to mine. Okay. So now what we're going to work on is we're going to work on a pendulum. So the pendulum is going to be using the hinge effect, the hinge components that we're using. So what we're going to do is let's see, what other good sprites are there? Sprites. They use diamonds. So we're going to make a new sprite called diamond. So we're going to click on diamond, and we're going to call it links. And we're going to click and drag it out there. Oh, it's kind of like the same. We're going to click a track out. Our tracks out here. Then we're going to extend this, basically making our base here. And then we're going to make a chain of diamonds. Click on that. Control D to duplicate. I'm going to make 5 chains. Links, I mean, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And finally, we're going to make a circle down here. Make a big circle. This is going to be our thing. This is going to be our pendulum. Okay. So what we want to do is I didn't make these into into a prefab, because each one is going to have a different properties. Each one's going to have different properties. So we're going to highlight all of them, all 5 of them, and we're going to add, well, all of them are going to have these, but they're all going to be set differently. So you're going to click on all of them, and we're going to add Hinge Joint 2D. And that's it. No, yeah. And then we have to link each one to the previous one. So what that means is links. If you take a look here, it says connected rigid body. This connected rigid body is going to be this one, the base. So I'm going to call this base. Okay. And I change the color. Change it to yellow color. Okay. And then all our links here, I'm going to leave this white. All our links are going to be connected to the previous one. So links, the first one, is going to be connected to base. So make sure base also has a rigid body. So I click here, rigid body 2D. And this is not going to be a dynamic thing. This is going to be a static, because it's just going to stay there and it's going to let the pendulum swing. Okay. So we're going to click on links. I'm going to click and drag our base here to connected rigid body. Okay. Then we're going to click on links 1, click on links, and then click that rigid body in there, and then click 2, and then drag 1, and then click 3, add 2, add 4, click on 4, add 3, okay? And then finally, we have the circle. The circle, we need to add a hinge collider, a hinge component, and we're gonna click and drag our 4 here, okay? So each one is linked to the previous one. Now our circle, we need to add a little bit more mass, because if we just leave it at 1, it's gonna dangle too much, or it's gonna like shake a lot. So of course, when the real world, the last thing is always heavy. So we're gonna make a mass of like 20, and let's put a linear drag of 2. So that means how much friction it's gonna have when it moves left and right. So that means it's not gonna move too much. If you put the lower number you get, the more it's gonna move. But if you put a higher number up here, it's going to have harder time moving left and right. So if I press play, now you'll see my, I don't know if you saw the little kind of bounce. That means all the links are, touching each other. So now let's move this a little bit. Sorry. Let's move these things a little bit to the left, so we have space for our pendulum. So something like this, just for now. And then we're going to move all our things here. We should probably make this into one game object. So to make a game object, what you're going to do is you're going to right click here and then click on empty, create empty, and it creates an empty game object. Okay. Let's center this around here. Okay. And let's call this pendulum. And we're going to click and drag all our objects that are in the pendulum, click and drag them inside pendulum, okay? So now this becomes a parent of all these things. So instead of moving things one by, or highlighting all of them and moving one by one, you can now just click on pendulum and it moves everything for you, okay? Let's add this around here. So when the ball falls, it should be able to move the ball. So now this thing goes down there. Oh, it didn't do anything. Reason why? Because these things don't have colliders. Okay, so let's add colliders. So let's click on circle. We're going to click on add component. We're going to do a circle collider. Click on all the links. Add component. We're going to add a... Okay, so this one is tricky. This one, if we add a box collider, take a look at what happens. You zoom in. You see how the diamond here, it has a box collider. Technically, that's not correct, because our shape is this way, but then our collider is this way. So this technically doesn't work if you want to be accurate. But for this example, it does work, because we don't care about collisions like right here. But if you do, if you're really nitpicky about it, let's remove the box colliders. And instead, we're going to use a collider. So to remove a component, so what I did is just click and shift click in all of these, and then click on the little gear, and then just click on remove component to remove the component. I removed the box colliders. The collider I do want to use is Polygon Collider. You click on Polygon Collider. Now it's going to draw the shape, and then if you take a look, I don't know if you can see it in my screen, but there's a small green line going around here. That means it traced out the shape and then made a collider based on that. Okay, that green circle you're seeing, that's the Hinge collider, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, so let's press play and let's see what happens. Anything falls, and then poop, it's able to move the pendulum. Okay, and of course, if you want more movement on this, here just change the rigid body. Instead of the mass being 20, you can change it to like 5, like very low. So when the ball touches it, it's going to move more. Okay, it's moving more, and then it's slowing down a lot because of course I told you the linear drag. So if I put this to like 0.2, now you'll see the thing swinging left to right, because there's no friction stopping it. So now it goes down. Well, no, well, of course this thing stopped it because the diamonds are there. But if the diamonds weren't there, the thing would be swinging left and right, and then this thing would also be bumping into it. Again, it's trying to follow real physics. Okay, so that's pretty cool. The pendulum that we have. And of course, if we want to change the pendulum color or any of the links that it touches, what you can do is you can just click and drag. Not click and drag. Shift click all these objects. Click on add component and then add the change color. Now, whenever it touches that that object, it changes its color. So now this thing rolls, it goes and then touches, boom, boom, and it turns it purple. It's a pretty cool effect. Okay. So yeah, that's the pendulum. And here we have all our tracks. Just gonna scatter them for a bit. Something like this. Of course, if you want to put more, you just press Control D to duplicate, or press Control C, Control V to copy and paste. Normal copy and paste. I completely ignore the pendulum. Okay. And of course, there's other effectors. Another cool effector we have is called buoyancy. So let's imagine we have water here. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another tracks. The reason why I'm using tracks is just because it's a square. It's easy to use. So I'm going to, oops, sorry. I'm going to press the scale tool. I'm just going to scale it to the right, make it longer, make it a little taller. And this is going to be like water. So here I'm going to change it to like a light blue or bluish kind of watery color. Okay. And here we're going to add a, yeah, I'm almost done. This is the last thing. Add here, add component, box collider. And then finally, we're going to add something called a buoyancy collider. Buoyancy. It's for buoyancy. Yeah. Buoyancy. Buoyancy effector. So click on that. So then this basically becomes like water. So make sure you click on used by effector and make sure it's a trigger, okay? Because it's kind of like water, so it has to kind of sink in. So now if you press play and you let the ball fall in this kind of water, so this thing falls down and then, oh, did it go too much in? Where'd it go? Did I forget to write a rigid button? Oh, I think our ball is too heavy. Let me separate my game and my scene tab so I can see what's going on. Oh, it just goes through. Well, I think my surface level is too low. Bring it up to 0.4. Let's make it a bit bigger. Like that. Let's see what happens now. Still goes through. I do need a rigid body. Okay. A body that is static. I think I need a kinematic, not static. Let's see what happens. I have to check in what's going on here. We're running out of time already, so this thing usually just works. Maybe I need another box slider. I'll double check. So yeah, so that's basically it for today. Because we are running out of time. So the main things I want to go over is first our physics. So we have our ball. We have two main objects. We have our collider and we have a rigid body. So our collider basically provides a physical barrier for the object. So it can be any shape. In this case, this shape is going to be a circle. If you have unique shapes, let's just say like you have a dragon or spaceship or any other object, then you would have to use, like in this case, for the hinge, we used a Polygon Collider. Okay, so you can draw anything you want as long as it's as a, what is it called? Transparent background. And it's shapes like this, then you can put a Polygon Collider, and then Unity traces it, and it creates an object based on the shape. Okay. Then we have different. Then we have rigid bodies. So rigid bodies enable physics to happen. In this case, there's there's three modes for physics. There's dynamic, kinematic, and static. Dynamic means it is going to move with force. So when something hits it, it's going to react. Kinematic and static just means it's not going to move. Kinematics means it's going to ignore force, and static is basically just not going to move at all. So if there is something like an explosion, kinematic is going to just stay, and static is basically just not even going to work with physics. It's just going to bump into things, but then that's it. Then we have our effectors. So our first effector that we use is surface effector. And surface effector basically adds a force to an object that falls in its kind of vicinity, and it adds some sort of force to it. The second one that we have is, well, this is not an effector, but this is more of a component. We have the hinge effect, hinge component. In the hinge, we explore two types of hinges. The free hinge, which is 360, where in this case, the pendulum, when you move the pendulum is able to kind of move with the whole object. And then we have a hinge that is attached to another object that is static. So this thing kind of acts like a trapdoor. So whenever an object gets here and it's heavy, it breaks that force, it breaks that connection it has with that body, and it's going to move according to wherever you specify. And then also these objects do have motors. So basically it's a kind of not go back to its position, but more like move to a certain location. And then once the force is broken there, it's going to move with physics, and then it's going to slowly go back to whatever position you had. And then the last thing we had that wasn't working. I'll double check what's going on here. I think I just forgot to check something. This is called the buoyancy effector. Basically, it just acts like water. You just put it on, and then you just turn on the physics, and it starts to float like water. Yeah, so that's it for today. Do you guys have any questions about this?
All right. Thank you, Fernando. So we will post this recording on the online page of bytesandbots.com. And those who have not paid for this class, please go to this URL and make sure that you pay. That's how we can continue to offer these classes. And let us know if you have any questions on that. All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks. Again, I'll try to figure out what's going on with the water. And oh, we are having another Unity course tomorrow. So if you guys are interested, tomorrow we'll be working with moving platforms. So next class we'll be writing more C#. We'll be adding. So basically, we're kind of making small portions of a a big game. So if you guys miss certain classes, that's fine. You guys can catch up on some of the parts. And then finally, we'll start kind of adding everything together. Once we have a few things down, and we can kind of make a 2D game, 3D game, and so on and so forth, depending on the small parts that we're learning. So again, tomorrow we'll be learning about moving platforms in Unity, and also I'll try to figure out what's going on. And tomorrow I'll tell you guys the solution for this buoyancy thing. I have to see what's going on. All right, thanks guys, and thanks for watching. Bye.